With Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos as parents, there was little doubt their kids would inherit some good genes. But fans were still blown away by their son Joaquin's beauty in his latest snapshot of life. The youngest of the Consuelos clan shared photos of himself enjoying a beach break, sparking quite a reaction from his social media followers. Joaquin, 23, was enjoying a beachside meal in the images with the blue sky and crystal clear waters behind him. In the first photo, he stood tall alongside sun loungers wearing a patterned shirt and with his hair slicked away from his chiseled face. He sported a deep tan and dimples and looked like the perfect blend of his famous parents. He simply captioned the post, "Eatin good," but not many fans were taking note of what he was eating. Instead, they remarked on his good looks, with one declaring, "That boy is beautiful," and many others mirroring the statement. Others made reference to Kelly and Mark's two other gorgeous children, Lola, 24, and Michael, 28, and declared, "All three of them are gorgeous," before adding, "But Joaquin is something else. Joaquin is enjoying some rest and relaxation before he hits Broadway." He's been newly cast in an upcoming revival of the famed play Death of a Salesman on Broadway, with opening night taking place on April 9th. This is only the second mainstream project for the young actor, who graduated from the University of Michigan in the spring of 2025. Joaquin has also been cast in a pilot for Hulu's upcoming adaptation of Nash Jenkins' 2023 novel Foster Dade Explores the Cosmos, simply titled Foster Dade. Talent runs in the family, as Joaquin's older brother is an actor, writer, and producer, and his sister Lola is a musician who released her debut EP in December. Despite Kelly and Mark's impressive net worth, they've also pushed their children to carve their own path to success. They've often spoken about how they instilled financial independence despite their immense wealth. Kelly told Amanda Hirsch on the Not Skinny But Not Fat podcast that while her children didn't come away from college with debt, they have earned their own money since they were young. Joaquin Consuelos had always carried the sort of look that made strangers do a double-take and old friends smile in recognition. The soft symmetry of a face built by relaxed Sunday mornings, the kind of dimples that appeared like punctuation marks when he laughed, and a muscle memory curl to his hair that never quite obeyed the wind. So when a handful of sunlit beach photos landed on his feed, a candid series of snapshots of him leaning against a sun lounger, a patterned shirt half-buttoned, a plate of lunch forgotten at his elbow, and the Atlantic loosening into a horizon behind him, the internet did what it does best, swooned politely and compared notes. He captioned the images plainly, "Eatin good." The sentence was smaller than the sky behind him and more private than the gossip that followed. Comments streamed in, a chorus of admiration, warm incredulity, and the kind of emoji punctuation that reads like applause. Fans drew family lines with their comments, remembering the familiar faces of Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos and saying, with varying degrees of astonishment, that nature had been very kind. Others lifted names, Lola Consuelos and Michael Consuelos, as if beauty were a family heirloom that had simply been redistributed among siblings. But Joaquin's feed was not only about looks. He was 23, freshly stepping off the campus where he had learned how to inhabit characters and tell stories, having graduated from University of Michigan in the spring of 2025. The beach day was a pause between rehearsals and auditions, a private breath before public curtain calls. He had recently been cast in a revival that would bring him to Broadway on April 9th, a hallowed, nervous sort of news, and a pilot for a streaming adaptation helmed by Hulu, based on a novel by Nash Jenkins titled Foster Dade Explores the Cosmos. The beach photos felt, to some, like a sunlit millisecond of a life that was about to change. If you asked Joaquin, though, which these days is something the internet thinks it can, he would shrug the part about being a living postcard from a celebrity family and point to the plate of food. "Eatin good," he'd say again, with the deliberate modesty of someone who had learned to let small pleasures stand on their own. The sea, the aroma of salt and grilled fish, the weight of the towel on the back of his neck, these were the ordinary miracles he liked to collect. Fame felt like weather, sometimes brilliant, sometimes gray. But the beach, in his mind, was a constant. The story opens not on the sand, but in the way the light found him. The morning after the photos were posted, the family group text, a chaotic thread that included gifs, voice notes, and the occasional practical joke, swelled with messages. In it, there were references to the old photographs of family vacations where the kids had been smaller, to the first summer when Joaquin had refused to wear sunscreen because real men don't burn, and to those evenings when Mark Consuelos and Kelly Ripa would sit up late and debate the ethics of giving the children all the answers. The message chain was both fortress and funhouse mirror, a place where love was loud and messy and entirely present. For Joaquin, the surf had always suggested a kind of narrative momentum. As a teen, he would stand at the waterline and imagine plays and scenes the way others imagined futures. He found that the ocean had a grammar of its own, rises and falls, obvious shifts of tone, sudden reversals. He liked the idea of a scene that began with a taste of lemon on his tongue and ended under a stage light with someone else's lines on his lips. He loved the way audiences could be a tide, pulling and releasing, and he was curious to see which way the current would take him. There's a softness to his public persona that is not accidental. In interviews, his parents described fostering independence as a family principle. Wealth was one thing, they would say. The appetite to earn one's own way was another. In a way that felt both stern and kind, they taught the children that money could be a tool, not a shield. For Joaquin, that lesson translated into an apprenticeship of small choices, paying his own bills when he could, learning the discipline of rehearsal schedules, turning down roles that might feel like shortcuts. The beach photos, innocuous as they were, became for some a visual shorthand for that balance. The laid-back son of famous parents who nonetheless kept his sneakers on and his eyes forward. In public life, the Consuelos family has always felt less like a glossy magazine spread and more like a well-loved play. Familiar actors, an audience that knows the beats, lines that are sometimes improvised and always generous. The beautiful comments under Joaquin's photos were, in a sense, an audience doing what it does best, offering a shorthand reaction to a scene they liked. But Joaquin, who had not yet learned the artifice of curating a life into perfect angles, held his phone like a prop, not a mirror. He wanted to be known for how he moved through light and shade, not for how he looked framed in one filtered afternoon. Still, the world loves a visible continuity. The timeline of his family made for a narrative any producer would envy. 2 parents who had built careers in the public eye, 3 kids who seemed to inherit more curiosity than entitlement. There were whispers about whether this or that casting was because of a famous name. There would always be whispers. Joaquin tried to let them float past like gulls, noting the ones that required attention and letting the rest fly on. The upcoming revival on Broadway felt important not because it would light his name in marquee letters, but because it was, in his own reckoning, work that asked for honesty. In the dressing room's quiet, when the lights were only a promise, the question of lineage felt small and honest work felt like the only inheritance worth pursuing. One evening shortly before his departure for New York, he walked the shoreline in the hour between tide and twilight. The sea was a peeled-back blue, and the sky a nearly private pink. He carried a camera, an old habit, and he took a photograph of himself in the way one might take a photograph of a place one wanted to remember. The image wasn't for fans. It was a record for the self, a map of a time he might want to return to. He thought of interviews his mother had given about raising kids who knew their worth and also how to earn it. He thought about his brother, who wrote and produced, making room for voices that sounded like theirs and like others. About his sister, who released an EP and then, with the bravery of a musician, kept making songs that felt unfinished and therefore alive. It's easy to write a tidy parable about beauty, that it opens doors and closes them, that it's a currency that trades quickly and sometimes bankrupts. Joaquin's relationship with beauty was more circuitous. He felt gratitude for the way people responded to the face he woke up with, But he also learned early to be suspicious of compliments that wanted nothing in return. If a stranger declared, "That boy is beautiful," he would nod and say thank you, an almost formal reply that acknowledged the